Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we will be talking about some new data that we have regarding the 2026 midterm elections and how across the board, Democrats are looking like they're in a much better position right now than they were just some weeks, just some months ago. As Donald Trump, as his approval rating falls, we're seeing the rise of Democrats not only in each race, but even in the generic ballot polling. When you ask voters, who are you going to vote for in the 2026 midterms? Democratic candidates or Republican candidates? Democrats have not lost a lead in that poll for over a month. Not a single poll has shown Republicans in the lead for over a month. Essentially, Democrats are running away with it, as we know it right now in the midterms. But there are a couple astounding polls, just absolutely stunning polls that we're getting from a few key races. For example, in North Carolina, we're seeing the former governor, the Democrat in the race, Roy Cooper, at an 8-point lead over his Trump endorsed Republican opponent, Michael Whatley. This is an absolute stunning lead. I mean, nobody could have expected to see an 8-point lead for anyone in this race in any poll, especially coming from North Carolina. North Carolina is a state that voted for Donald Trump 3 times. 2024, he won it by 3. 2020, he won it by 1. And in 2016, he won it by 4 when you round. So to see not only a Democrat winning this Senate race, but to see the Democrat winning by 8 points in this poll is absolutely stunning. Nobody could have expected this. I mean, if this did prove to be true on election day, it would be one of the biggest shocks in recent American politics. And remember, this is a federal race. This is not some local state race like governor or attorney general, where voters are much less partisan. This just shows how strong of a candidate Roy Cooper is. That was an absolute major, pickup for the Democratic Party, getting Roy Cooper to run, and you could just see that advantage he has. And not only that, Democrats are getting some good news even in Republican primaries, which is interesting. Watch this Senate primary in Texas, this Republican primary for Senate in Texas, where you have the incumbent John Cornyn trying to run for reelection, but he is facing a primary bid against the Attorney General, Ken Paxton. This is already a nasty race, and I guarantee you this will get nastier and nastier and nastier as we head to the actual primary. Ken Paxton had an affair. He just got divorced from his wife. Paxton says Cornyn isn't MAGA enough. This will be a very nasty race, and essentially why this is good for Democrats is because whoever comes out of this race as the nominee will already have turned off so many Republican voters where in a low turnout election for Republicans, it honestly could pave a path for Democrats to actually win Texas if they get someone, solid as a candidate. Maybe Beto O'Rourke can do it. He's doing a lot of town halls and all that. So essentially, Democrats across the board are getting good news. They're getting good news in North Carolina. They're getting good news in Texas. They're getting good news in Ohio. Sherrod Brown, the former senator, is trying to mount a bid, or he is. He has mounted a bid against the Republican. He will try to get back in the Senate. In Nebraska, you have Dan Osborne, the independent, running again. And keep in mind, even if these people don't win, that is important. If you're diverging money, if Republicans now have to send out money to defend their incumbents in safe states, in safe Republican states like Nebraska, Texas, Ohio, that is good for Democrats. Then that means Democrats, could carve out an advantage in more traditional swing states. So this is my forecast right now, and we could just fill in the map. We could at least fill in the safe states for each party, what it's looking like for each party. Oregon, Delaware, New Jersey is Cory Booker. It's on the verge of being safe, but probably likely. You got Rhode Island. You've got New Hampshire. I believe it is. I forget who is running in New Hampshire. Chris Pappas, yes, Chris Pappas, that's right. The U.S. representative is running for Senate there in New Hampshire. You've got Virginia. It's Mark Warner in Virginia. He should win by at least a likely margin, if not safe. Illinois. Dick Durbin is retiring. He will get a replacement there, but still a safe Democratic state. You've got Amy Klobuchar, or I'm sorry, no, it is Tina Smith retiring in Minnesota, and you have the probably the Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan is going to be the nominee. Angie Craig, the U.S. rep, is running against her. As for Republicans, they have quite a few safe states as well: Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, definitely not Nebraska. Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. The South Carolina, Lindsey Graham will probably be likely, if not safe. That one shouldn't get too close regardless. You've got Florida. Let's call it likely as of now. You've got Alaska. That could be interesting if Mary Peltola, the former U.S. rep, very popular, runs. But as of now, we're going to keep it likely. Democrats, meanwhile, have Colorado. That one could be safe. And then New Mexico, Ben Ray Lujan, the incumbent, is running for re-election there. So after you fill in all the safe or almost safe states, it is a very close race. Now, Republicans have a strong advantage in the Senate right now after the 2024 elections, 53 seats to the Democrats' 47 seats. Remember, they picked up Pennsylvania in 2024, as well as Ohio and Montana. So that gave them that big advantage to them in the Senate. But Democrats essentially have the opportunity to make this a very tight Senate, which is important. I mean, when you look at if you look at the nominations that the Trump administration made, to put in the cabinet, you had Pete Hegseth get ahead by one vote, which was J.D. Vance breaking the tie. If there was just one more Democrat elected in 2024, Pete Hegseth would not be in the administration right now. It would have been a more moderate pick. The margins matter. It would be an absolute shock to the system if Democrats take control of the Senate. But the margins still matter. If it is a 51-49 Senate, or of course 50-50, Republicans would have such a hard time passing, any extreme legislation or agenda when you have more moderate Republicans in there, like Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, in Alaska, or Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. Well, he'll retire, but you get the idea. It becomes so much harder to pass, more extreme, more conservative, radical legislation. The margins matter. So when you look at a close race like this, all Democrats have to do is pick off a couple, and it is a huge advantage from where they were 2 years ago after the 2024 elections. So, as I said in North Carolina, I think this is Roy Cooper's race to lose at this point. It would really take some crazy scandal. When you look at the name recognition, right now, Michael Watley is at like 33%, like a third of voters have heard of Michael Watley, when nearly all have heard of their former governor. Some like 96% have heard of Roy Cooper, their former governor. That alone is a massive advantage for Roy Cooper. It would take something really shocking. Something, I don't know what it could possibly be, probably some sort of scandal to sink Roy Cooper in this race. He is on track to win. I have him at a 4 point margin right now. You could just see how bullish I am on his chances. 4 point margin. That would be a 7.3% shift from 2024. It would go from a 3% margin for Trump to a 4 point margin for Roy Cooper. That is where I have North Carolina right now. Meanwhile, in Georgia, Jon Ossoff is on track to win. You've got a very divided Republican primary, and Jon Ossoff is more popular than ever. He is a good politician. I have it at a 1.3% margin. It will probably be more. Sorry, this guy should not be there. There we go. Um, Jon Ossoff, if not 1.3, probably somewhere like 2 or 3 points. I haven't updated this table in a while. That would be a 3.5% shift from 2024 from the presidential election. So you've got Georgia, North Carolina. I'm very confident in those right now. That is in Democratic hands. And now look at that. You're at 47-47. Now Republicans don't have much, um, ground to spare. Meanwhile, in Iowa, I believe This is Joni Ernst. Yeah, she is running for re-election. She is not a popular senator, one of the least popular in her home state, in fact. I think that this one will be close. As you could see, it doesn't really matter who the Democrat is. I have it as at a 7 point shift towards the right, 7 points from the 2024 election. Trump was at his strongest in 2024, and it looks like Joni Ernst is at her weakest in 2026. This one should not get too close, I have it at a 6 point margin, but right now Joni Ernst is still favored to win. So that leaves you with Nebraska, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, and Maine. Nebraska, you can't deny that Deb Fisher is favored right now. I have it at a 7 point, or I'm sorry, Pete Ricketts is favored right now. He is at a 7.5 lead in my forecast. Again, this is against Dan Osborne. That's why there's such a dramatic shift towards the quote unquote Democrat in the race. Of course, he is not. Um, but can't deny that Pete Ricketts is favored there. Now Republicans are at 49. They're in a much better position, but Democrats do have probably under the belt the traditional swing states, and it just shows how unfavored the Senate map is for Democrats election after election after election. The whole idea is unfavorable towards the Democrats in this point in history right now. Because when you look at all the traditional swing states that decide these proportional presidential elections, where electoral votes are given by population, unlike in the Senate, you've got Georgia, you've got North Carolina already going towards the Democrats. Those are the crucial swing states. And as what prompted me to say that, Michigan, I think, will be as well. So my point being, you've got out of the seven, traditional crucial swing states in presidential elections, three, all three, or the three that have Senate elections in 2026 are all going towards Democrats. Despite that, Democrats are not going to win the majority in the Senate. So it just shows how there are simply more Republican states. Even if there's less people in those states, there are more Republican states than Democrats. So the Senate, it just sucks to be a Democrat when it comes to the U.S. Senate. It is much easier to win the Senate in this point in history as a Republican. Maybe that'll change in 30 years, but right now that is just how it is, and Democrats have to deal with that. But anyway, in Michigan, I think that the Democrats will win. Now in Michigan, you have a very interesting primary. You've got the front runner right now by a narrow margin, increasingly narrow, I should say. The very corporate, the very centrist Haley Stevens. No one really likes her. But she's winning for some reason. I don't know why in the polls. In second place in the polls, you've got Abdul El Sayed. He is the clear progressive choice in the race, right? Endorsed by Bernie Sanders, probably AOC and all those guys, all the squad members. Running on Medicare for all, basically as his main point. Um, I think could be a very strong candidate. And then you've got she's very underdog status, but lots of people, Democrats across, in other states have lots of hope for her campaign, want her to win. Mallory McMorrow, the president of the Senate, or something like that, state senator there in Michigan. So honestly, Haley Stevens would be the absolute worst candidate in the race. If Haley Stevens is nominated, she almost definitely loses to Mike Rogers, the Republican. If it's El Sayed or McMorrow, I think both of them would be very strong picks, especially El Sayed. And I think that they would be very narrowly favored to win. Right now, two out of the three Dems, I think, would win. I am going to characterize it as a lean Democratic state. And then you have Texas, where Democrats obviously haven't led a general election poll ever in 2026. It'd be foolish to characterize it as anything but lean, probably a 4 to 5 point margin right now. And then you've got Ohio, or let's head up to Maine. Actually, in Maine, this is quite an interesting one. Maine voted for Kamala Harris by 7%. They have a Republican senator running for re-election who is incredibly unpopular, literally has a 15% approval rating in her state, yet no prominent Democrats are running it against her. Why? I do not know. Still, this might change, but still, I think that Janet Mills will probably run. the governor, and she will win. Chuck Schumer is trying to recruit her to run for Senate. We'll see. We'll see how this changes. But right now, I just can't. Everyone thought she would lose in 2020. She didn't. Maybe she'll shock us again. If Democrats continue to do nothing about this race going into the future, yeah, I'd have to put Susan Collins in the lead in my projection. And finally, you have Ohio. And with Ohio, with Sherrod Brown running, Democrats have the incredible opportunity to win 50 Senate seats, which would mean that it's a tied Senate and J.D. Vance would cast any ties. Republicans would literally have zero wiggle room to pass legislation. So Ohio is extremely important, and you've got John Husted running, who hasn't really proven to be electorally strong. He was only appointed after Vance, left the seat vacant to be vice president. So we don't really know how strong of a candidate he is electorally, at least for Senate elections. And we do know that Sherrod Brown is strong. On the presidential election ticket, Trump won by 11%. On that same ballot, the Republican beat Sherrod Brown by 3.5. Sherrod Brown outperformed Kamala Harris by 7 or 8 points in 2024. He is the strongest Democrats could possibly put up. And later down the line, later down the road, we might actually see Sherrod Brown take the lead in this race. But right now, it is too early to say that. I would say Ohio is lean. And sorry about this, all these things. This is very outdated, I realized. This was before we knew Sherrod Brown was running. Texas and Maine are outdated as well. So this is where I think things stand. 51-49, Republicans win the Senate. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all later.